Hi everyone and welcome to my studio. My name's Diane and almost every day I upload a video showing you the secrets to painting beautiful watercolours. I'll teach you to become a good artist by showing you all the techniques and tips I've learned throughout my life and during many decades of painting. I learned from some of the best artists in the world, including the late great Ron Ransom, and I'm thrilled to be able to pass this knowledge on to you. Today's painting is a delicate vase of flowers using a limited palette, so let's get started. Before starting the painting, I need to decide which colours to use, and for a small painting like this, you want it to be pretty and harmonious, so just choose a few colours. If you stick to single pigment, transparent colours, your mixes will be clean and pure and full of light. So I've chosen ultramarine blue, transparent yellow, permanent rose and Winsor violet. I could do without the violet at a pinch, as I can mix mauves using permanent rose and ultramarine, but it does help with achieving some of the darker colours. Here I'm testing out the colours to make sure they blend well. I've mixed a little bit of transparent yellow with some ultramarine to make a green, and now I'm just combining it with the permanent rose to make sure that the resulting greyed off colours aren't going to be muddy, even when they're quite strongly mixed. And they seem to be okay. I'm getting quite a nice soft violet there. So I know I can mix three colours together. The ultramarine, the transparent yellow and the permanent rose will not give me mud when mixed together. Very important. And now I'm just testing a green for a leaf, but I don't only paint the leaves in green, so I'm going to test out a violet, which is violet mixed with blue, and then a dulled down green, which is ultramarine blue, violet and yellow. And really, just for my own information for later, future reference, this is a handy tip, is to label your mixes. I'm just writing in with a pencil beside each of my swatches what it is exactly that's in it, because otherwise how on earth would you ever remember what it was that you mixed? Notice I'm putting this in my sketchbook so that I know where this piece of paper can be found for future paintings that I might happen to do at some point. You never know. Okay, so I'm working on a piece of Fabriano 100% cotton bright white watercolour paper with a medium texture. It's not very rough. Painting flowers, you can paint on rough paper, but sometimes if you want something a bit more delicate, you might want to look for a finer grain. And I've sketched out the bouquet as a guide, although it's quite possible I might go outside the lines. And now I've mixed up a strong concentration of permanent rose, and I'm just putting some dots into the center of the three flowers here. And now I'm coming in with an empty brush just full of water, and I'm drawing the pigment out from those center dots to form the petals of the flowers. This is a quick and easy way of making a pretty flower. It's quite fun too. The main thing to remember is that the paint in the centre has to be quite strong, but very tightly placed in the centre, and then you come in with no paint on your brush, just a wet brush, and you just draw the colour out from the centre. Of course, you would want to practice this on a spare piece of paper before you started the painting if you've never done this technique before. And just to say again, this is just permanent rose. You could use literally any colour at all. But when you get your paints, have a look on the label and check to see which ones are transparent and which ones are non-staining. Those are the ones you really want for flowers. Transparent colours are so much better for creating a light-filled effect. And up the top here, I'm just drawing in one of these flowers, but from the side. So I'm just using an ordinary brush stroke for that. And here I'm going to put in a spray of a lilac-coloured flower that could be lavender or wigelia or lilac or whatever happens to grow in your country. I think it's just a pretty spray of lilac-coloured flowers. So putting in some light dots first and then coming in with a slightly darker tone to give a bit of depth. And this is Winsor violet mixed with a tiny bit of ultramarine. And down here I'm just putting some petals in the same violet colour. Now I've picked up some green. This is a mixture of ultramarine and transparent yellow, or you could use a ready mixed green if you like. If you do, I would use sap green, toned down a little bit, perhaps with a little bit of permanent rose, just to grey it off a little bit maybe. Or you could use olive green or hooker's green. Just make sure that you don't pick a green that's too unnatural. Don't use a turquoise, because you know what, there's hardly any turquoise in nature. You just go out and see if you can find some. It's not there. But green is. There's plenty of green out there, so stick with the green. And you can make all sorts of colours using green, actually. Be surprised what you can add to green and what comes out the other side of your brush. Okay, so I'm just painting in some rather larger leaves here, using a yellowish green. And just putting, you know how to do this, I'm sure. You place the tip of the brush on the paper to make the point of the leaf, and then you press down slightly, and then as you move the brush away from the starting point, you release the pressure a little bit so that you get a leaf shape. Again, worth practicing this on a spare piece of paper before you commit. And if you just change the green shade slightly every time you start another leaf, you don't have to mix a whole new colour. Just add a little bit more blue or a little bit more yellow or a tiny touch of permanent rose to your green so that it varies. But these colours will then all relate to one another. If you stick with the limited palette, all of your colours will be harmonious. They can't help it. They have to be. And at the top here, I'm using a really light greyed down green colour here. It's got more blue in it and less yellow. More yellow near the bottom. And yeah, so it's greyed down and also not very strong mix. It's quite a light mix up there. As you're doing the painting, think about your arrangement of the leaves and the flowers. Something I often find I do wrong by accident is I leave a gap in the middle of the bouquet of flowers and forget to put the main flower in the middle. So I started with the flowers this time so I didn't fall into that trap. And I'm imagining that these flowers are in a glass jar or a vase. So now I'm just dropping in some very pale ultramarine blue with plenty of water to give the impression of something light and transparent, and imagining that the water level is about 2/3 of the way up, and of course there's a curve where the water sits because the vase is round. If you have trouble drawing something like this, you can always trace a picture. You could download something from the internet, print it out and trace around it, or you could go to our website and download one of my sketches, which you'll find there, and they're free. I do also have paintings and prints for sale on the website, but the download sketches are completely free. Now I've picked up some darker green, and I'm just putting in some shadows on some of these leaves. This paper is interesting because it dries really quickly because it's 100% cotton, which is great for doing this kind of painting. I think a lot of floral artists do like Fabriano 100% cotton for this reason, because you don't have to hang around waiting for hours while it dries. There are times when you want paper to stay wet, so you can do wet in wet painting for a longer period of time, but we're not doing wet in wet here, and faster drying time is helpful. Of course, if you live in a place where the climate's very dry and hot, you're going to have that happening all the time anyway. Everything will dry before you've hardly got it on the paper, which is another whole set of problems. We don't have that in England or Brittany, where I live. But it's true. I always remember when I lived in Canada, if I didn't drink my whole cup of coffee quick enough, it would dry in the bottom of the cup before I had a chance to finish it. It's just bizarre how things dry. We lived in Calgary and it was the driest place on earth, I swear. Okay, so now I'm coming in with some more pink. It's not very much darker than the original pink, but just a little bit, and I'm using that to give another layer to the petals on these flowers. I'm just adding a little bit more colour to the centre of these three flowers here too, to emphasise the centres a little bit. And I will be adding some yellow in there. I made a slight mistake on that leaf, but I've managed to correct it by lifting out with a tissue some of the pigment. And now I'm just putting in some stronger lines with a dark green. Again, all mixed from the ultramarine. Now obviously you can see that that is too dark, and I meant it to be too dark, so I'm just washing it down now to make it look like water. So just using plenty of water there. You have to bear in mind as well, of course, something that can be forgotten, that paint dries lighter than it is when it's wet. So whatever you put on the paper will definitely dull down. By tomorrow, when you come to look at it, you will see a significantly changed painting. You'll be amazed. I did a landscape yesterday with some mountains in the background, a rocky mountain landscape, and my daughter said to me, "What do you think of your painting?" And I said, "I don't know, I haven't seen it yet," because I was meaning that when I look at it the next day, it will be different from the thing I walked away from. And that's always the case. I know it sounds weird, but it's true. Now I've just been adding lots more vaguely leaf-shaped, light-coloured patches of paint to give the whole thing more three-dimensionality. These are various different shades of grey that I'm mixing from the 3 primaries which I'm using, and I'm just popping them in where they seem to want to be. This is where it gets actually quite hard to say do it this way, do it that way, because you've just got to feel your way into the painting. The best way to do it is obviously to try and fail and try again and try again and try again, and in the end you'll get something you like out of it. These are some dark violet dots that I'm putting in now. And we are coming towards the end of this painting. And probably a good time to stop and walk away and take a look at what you've done. These last little touches of strong colour are quite important because they do make everything stand out, but you need to get them in the right place, and sometimes you don't. So if you don't, just like that, just take a tissue, clean tissue, and dab it out. And this is why you want non-staining paint, because if you use non-staining paint, and as I said, it will be marked on the label, you can lift it out. So if you go wrong, don't panic. As long as it's not staining colour, you'll be fine. It just lifts out. And I'm just evaluating this and thinking to myself, don't take it too far, don't go too far. You have to know when to stop. But I think there's one thing I want to add. Those blue flowers over that side are rather on their own, so I think the thought is coming to me that maybe I should put a little sprig of the same colour on the left here. Yes, that's better. Somebody said once about colour that if you put it in the painting in one place, it must be repeated somewhere else, but in a lesser amount. So if I've got 2 violet flowers on the right hand side up the top there, I have to have a smaller violet flower somewhere else. So now I have, so I'm happy. One of the hardest things to draw in the world is water, being as it's transparent and there's not really anything there to paint. What you're painting is the reflected light, and there's nothing trickier than that. So sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Like I said, I'll see tomorrow whether or not that worked. And we really are coming to the end now, before I mess it all up. I'm going to stop talking. So I hope you enjoyed watching me paint this vase of flowers and that you learnt something. I certainly did. If you did, click subscribe and give me a like, and come back tomorrow for another painting session. Don't forget our website for the download of this sketch, and please also use our affiliate links in the description below the video if you're buying anything from Amazon. It really does help. Thanks again for being with me today, and I look forward to seeing you next time. But I'll say bye for now. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.